Riq Woolen has been nothing if not contentious since entering the league in 2022. After bursting onto the scene with a flurry of interceptions and his trademarked blazing speed, he was a contender for Rookie of the Year, with Seahawks fans rallying around him and making the case that he deserved that award. But since then, a lot has changed. Fair warning, this is going to be a little bit more of a rant than you're probably used to from this channel, and that is all because of the narrative around Riq Woolen. It has done a complete 180 since his rookie year. At this point, I don't know if there is another player in the league that is so underrated and dismissed by his own fans, and I think that is ridiculous. Today, I have 3 myths that I want to dispel about Riq Woolen. These are myths that Seahawks fans seem to truly believe, and they are the reason why this Riq Woolen discourse has gotten so disconnected from reality. I know that sounds harsh, but I have the stats and the tape to back that up. And we'll close by answering the all-important question: will the Seahawks re-sign Woolen? And maybe even more interestingly, should they? Let's jump in, starting with the first myth, that Riq Woolen is regressing. All of these myths bug me, but this is the most important and the most wild to me, because Riq has improved every single year that he has been in the league. I don't care what the interceptions say, that is a tremendously fluky stat that often relies more on bad offense than anything from the corner. What we care about is the consistency of his coverage, and that has been getting better and better. To prove that, I did the natural thing, and I went and charted every single target from all 3 of Riq Woolen's seasons so far to look at the quality of his coverage, and that goes way beyond the basic box stats that you can find. And the results of this charting are really surprising, so stick with me. First, the ground rules. I charted every single target, excluding targets where the corner had nothing to do with reception. So that means we exclude screens, passes to receivers who are not really the corner's responsibility. We're excluding batted balls and plays from zone where the corner did his job, but the offense just completed it underneath. Full details for my process and rationale are in a free article over on the Patreon linked below. Because to me, the goal of a corner is to make the receiver's job as difficult as possible. That is the foundation of what I was charting. So I sorted every single target into a bunch of different categories, but let's just look at the big one. On the plays where the corner was targeted, was the receiver open or was it a tight window throw? A tight window throw to me means that the corner was either touching the ball or the receiver at the catch point, and they were clearly making it much more difficult for the receiver to make the catch. Let's start by looking at Woolen's rookie season. His rookie year was a good one. Everyone remembers the interceptions, but from a sticky coverage perspective, he was pretty great. 40% of his eligible targets were charted as open. By extension, that means that 60% of the time when he was targeted, he was in tight coverage with the receiver. That is pretty decent, as we'll see later. But he also gave up 293 yards on those open receptions. That is free yards for the offense and is the worst thing that you can give up as a corner. If they earn it by making a great catch, that is one thing, but just letting the receiver catch the ball easily is a problem. This is what corners try to prevent. Let's watch this play from the 2022 season that shows how he gave up so many yards to wide open receivers. This was, in my opinion, his worst play on tape from that season. It's 3rd and 6 in the second quarter of a Week 18 matchup against the Rams. The Seahawks are in cover 3 with zone match rules, and what that means for Riq is that in essence, this is man coverage from an off alignment against this corner route. And despite his tremendous speed, which is well documented at this point, he gets torched. His technique here is really confusing and static, and he's slow out of the break. He's naturally not the most smooth and fluid player, and he's never really going to have the twitch of a Devin Witherspoon, but here in his rookie year, he was clearly still figuring out his technique, and after watching all of this film, that is the biggest reason why he gave up so many yards on open receptions. He just couldn't get his feet lined up or anticipate in time. His footwork was clunky, and a lot of his losses were right at the break of the route because of this clunkiness. Or we could look at this play against the Jets where Riq just loses track of this route. He has always been the same absurd athlete, but people forget how raw and unrefined he was as a rookie. That was still a great season for him, but these footwork and anticipation errors did cost him. Fast forward to 2023 and things were improving. In 2023, his open target rate dropped to just 36.5%, and he gave up just 199 yards on open receptions. And this play shows that improvement. Here against the Browns in 2023, Woolen is guarding this double move up the sideline. And just watch how much smoother he is at adjusting to this route. His footwork is miles better, and he's actually able to mirror the route. This ends up with a great catch from Cooper, but this is still really solid coverage from Woolen, and it shows the improvements that he made after his rookie year. And then there's 2024, where again Woolen did not regress. According to my charting and the tape, he made significant progress. His open target rate fell down to just 31%, and his open yards also dropped to just 160 yards. And this play is a great example of that. Here against the Broncos, Riq is in man coverage, and he just easily mirrors. Now, I'll be the first to admit that Riq is markedly better in press alignments, more on that later, but part of his improvement has to be attributed to Mike Macdonald using him better and letting him press more. But also, just like that last clip, this is improved route recognition and footwork. That is what allows him to mirror so much better. He stays right in the receiver's hip and smoothly denies the reception. Or here against the Patriots, Riq is back in off coverage, but his anticipation is so much better. He is planting to drive on this route with the receiver, and that is what allows him to get a hand in front of the ball. If this pass was accurate, Riq would have knocked it away easily. The stats and the film do not lie. And just so you know that this isn't just my own biased charting, Next Gen Stats has Riq Woolen as the runaway leader for the best in the league in average separation, and they ranked him second in tight window force percentage according to their definitions. Check out this chart. He is a true outlier in how difficult he made it for receivers to separate. And these stats also show his improvements. Since his rookie year, his average separation is down 20%, and his tight window forced rate is up 9%. He is clearly not regressing. Riq has made consistent progress and is becoming a much more reliable player. Now, you're probably saying, what about all those big plays and the touchdowns that he allowed in 2024? And yes, in total, he did allow more yards than these stats might suggest in 2024. But let's do this. Let's watch the 4 plays from last year where he gave up the most yards. These were the only plays all season where he allowed more than 20 yards on a play, and I don't really think that any of them are a bad play from Riq Woolen. Let's go through these. On this first one against the Rams, the receiver somehow just runs over Woolen and snags the ball in heavy traffic for 24 yards. If you want to put this on Riq a little bit, I totally get it, but this was Job's responsibility, and it's mostly just a great play from the receiver. Then we have this catch against the Cardinals, which is an absurd effort from the receiver, and there's almost no window for this ball to fit in. We also have this dime against the Packers, which is just another stunning catch into a microscopic window. Lastly, we have this catch against the Rams, which, say what you want about it, this is a contested one-handed catch 40 yards down the field. You can't tell me looking at this photo that this is somehow proof that Riq is a bad coverage defender. This had to be a perfect throw and a tremendous catch, and that is what happened. The guys on the other side of the ball get paid too, and perfect offense always beats perfect defense. Sometimes there's just nothing you can do. And to me, that was the story of Riq's 2024 season. It was a breakout year for him, except some receivers made some ridiculous catches and kind of ruined his chances to get recognized for it. He allowed 224 yards on what I have charted as tight window throws. That is by far a career high, and to me shows that receivers were making exceptional plays because that was the only way that they could get the ball on Woolen. Over a third of his total eligible coverageable yards came on just those 4 plays. And again, those are to me more incredible catches than any problem with Riq's coverage. So I hope that I've at least convinced you that Riq is becoming a more consistent and sticky defender. But now we need some context for these numbers. Again, like I said at the top, I did the only reasonable thing and did the exact same charting process for Patrick Surtain and Sauce Gardner, the consensus top corners in the league. For fair comparison, I adjusted all of these numbers to adjust for the snaps that each player got, so we are comparing apples to apples. And here's what I found. In open target percentage, Riq is leading the way. His 2024 season had the lowest rate in the 9 seasons that I charted, with Sauce's breakout in 2022 and his sophomore season following behind. Next up, we have PS2 in his best season back in 2022, and then to round out the top 6, we have Riq again in 2023, followed by Riq in 2022. Big takeaway, Riq dominates this stat. Next, let's look at open yards allowed. Here the takeaway is also clear. Sauce and Surtain have had clear down years over the past 3 seasons. Sauce had a bad year in 2024, and Surtain had a rough time in 2023. In 2024, Sauce Gardner gave up as many open yards as Riq Woolen did in his 2023 and his 2024 seasons combined. The same is true for Surtain's down year in 2023. Both of these guys signed top of the market extensions off the back of those seasons that are just so much worse than anything Woolen has put on tape. I know I'm throwing a bunch of numbers at you, but here's the headline. I don't know how you can chart the plays from the past 3 years and come to any other conclusion than saying that Riq is the best coverage defender out of the 3. Per my charting using the snap adjusted numbers, he gave up the least amount of total yards, he had the lowest open receiver rate, and he had the least open receiver yards. To be clear, he hasn't had the highs of Sauce and Surtain. Each of them have had a truly dominant defensive player of the year caliber seasons, but Woolen has been much more consistent than these players because he's avoided the down years that each of them have had. And that's just not talked about enough. Riq is not a good coverage defender, he is an elite coverage defender. Corner is such a volatile position, and Riq has been the beacon of consistency, improving his stickiness and coverage every single year. The 2 consensus best corners in the league can't even touch that consistency that he brings. And that's just what the numbers say, but after watching all of his tape, I can also tell you that his tape at least holds up with these other guys. I think he's absolutely in their league as far as coverage ability, maybe not everything else that they have in their games, but as a pure coverage defender, Riq Woolen is elite. But let's get into myth number 2, which claims that Riq Woolen is a bad scheme fit for Mike Macdonald. The logic goes something like this. Mike Macdonald likes zone coverage, and Riq Woolen is a man corner. Therefore, Riq Woolen is a bad scheme fit. And while on the surface that does make sense, and both of those statements are for the most part true, that is a massive misunderstanding of this scheme and how Mike Macdonald is deploying Riq Woolen. Here's the truth. I went through and charted every single Riq Woolen coverage snap in 2024 and specifically looked at his technique. Overall, Riq Woolen used a man coverage technique over 73% of the time. Again, it's not that the Seahawks played man coverage 73% of the time, but Riq Woolen did. Let's look at this play as an example. This is a classic version of Cover 3 Liz, which is a pattern matching way to play Cover 3. Now, this is technically Cover 3, which falls under the broad zone coverage category, but almost everyone on defense is playing with a man coverage technique. Riq is at the bottom of our screen, and he is in pretty much straight up man coverage on Puka, but he will release the route if it goes under. Usually they have a cutoff around 5 yards. Otherwise, it's just straight up man coverage. It's a similar story with these Apex defenders. They have everything up and out from these number 2s, but they can release them if they quickly go under that 5-yard marker. Really, the only true zone coverage defender defenders are these inside hook players. Their job is to help with the running back and look for any shallow crossers. So in this zone coverage, Woolen is really just playing man, and he does his typical excellent job at it. He is unbelievably sticky all the way down the field, and then he mosses Puka Nacua for the interception. Riq is not just a decent scheme fit or a good scheme fit, he is an essential piece to this defense. Nearly half of his snaps were just straight up press man coverage. Mike Macdonald literally just pointed at a guy that he wanted to be eliminated, and that is what happened. Having a guy who can just line up man to man and you can trust to be really sticky to the receiver without any help, that is a very unique skill set, and it's not an easily replaceable skill set as so many Hawks fans seem to believe. There's just a handful of corners who can do that, and they're all being paid at the top of the market for good reason. He is a great fit in this defense, and Macdonald wouldn't be able to do what he wants to do without Riq Woolen. Last but not least, we have myth number 3, that Riq Woolen has terrible effort. For this third myth, I'm not just going to throw a bunch of numbers at you. Let's just look at this play against the Vikings. If you think that I forgot to talk about this play, I didn't. And that's because this play has basically nothing to do with Riq, despite the entire fan base seeming to hold it up as proof of his terrible effort. But that's just not true. I'll give some credit here. There were some fans and news sites that accurately reported this. Mookie Alexander of Field Goals did a great job of going back and watching the tape before just deciding that this was all Riq's fault. But it seems like most Hawks fans didn't. Let's break down the coverage that the Seahawks are running here. They're running a version of cover 2. That is a zone coverage with 2 deep safeties taking the deep halves. Riq is aligned to the top of our screen in press coverage. He's using a bail technique here from this alignment, and he's working to force Jefferson to release inside. That is really important to give Julian Love a chance to get over the top of this route and not be beat to the sideline. Now, again, this is zone coverage. Woolen is not responsible for guarding Jefferson. His job is to force an inside release and then sync with this route. He will stay underneath this route with his eyes on the quarterback because he is actually the flat defender. If the back releases to the flat or something comes underneath, that is his responsibility. As this route goes vertical and there's nothing to the flat, Woolen keeps syncing with the route. But again, he's not guarding Justin Jefferson. This vertical belongs to Julian Love. Riq's job is to take care of everything else to that side. When the ball comes out, Riq does accelerate to stay underneath the route, but he's not expected to contest this throw. Again, his job is to stay underneath the route if it converts to a comeback or is underthrown. When we're breaking down who is responsible for giving up this touchdown, it starts with Julian Love. Love had a fantastic season last year, and I think that he's one of the better safeties in the league. He's been truly awesome, but on this play, he was a split second too late. I think there's part of him that just didn't see Jefferson breaking this route back outside, and I also think that he just didn't believe that Darnold could make this throw. And still, Love is almost able to pick this ball off. This has to be Darnold's best throw of his season with pinpoint accuracy, so if I'm assigning blame, it's like 60% Julian Love and 40% just Darnold making a wild throw. But Woolen did his job. Yes, he pulled up at the end, but he did that to not take out Julian Love and to let him make a play on the ball. You don't want him just running in there and getting a pass interference penalty when Love was about to make the interception. Now, does Riq have amazing efforts? Clearly, no. He's not Devin Witherspoon out there, and I'm not arguing that he is. But based on the narratives coming out of this game, you would think that Riq looked like Deonte Banks on this wild lowlight from last year. Here, Banks is actually playing man coverage, not zone like Riq was playing, and Banks gets torched off the line and then starts jogging when he's 20 yards out from the end zone. That is a bad play with bad effort problems. That's just not what Riq showed against the Vikings. Again, I'm not saying that his effort is a strength of his game, but it's not bad enough that he's a player that you don't want on the team. Because it's not like he's a lazy player. This guy has always been at voluntary OTAs, and we've seen the strides that he takes to improve his game every single year. His effort, or I guess more specifically his on-field energy, is a weakness, but it's not a deal breaker like so many Hawks fans make it out to be. This is really the only play from his 2024 tape where his lack of effort cost the Seahawks. And yes, this is a bad play, easily his worst of the year, and he should have taken the route back inside. But again, this isn't as big of an issue as Hawks fans make it out to be. He was still an elite coverage defender, even with his lower energy playstyle. So that's what we have with Riq. This is a player who made consistent steps as a coverage defender and now ranks among the league's best in this area. He is a perfect scheme fit for the system, and alongside Witherspoon, that duo allows the Seahawks to run a very aggressive style of coverage. And while his effort is not great, his tackling has been improving, and now he's fine in that area as well. If you want proof of that, because this could have been its own separate myth, here's this play against the Jets where he does a great job of crack replacing once the receiver blocks the safety. This is an excellent tackle with no hesitation, and it just doesn't compare to pretty much every run snap that he had in his first 2 years where he would consistently hesitate and miss tackles. These plays matter, and it is huge that now he can hold up when asked to defend the run. I wanted to make this episode based on comments from Brady Henderson on Hawk Blogger's show. They're both people I really respect and two of the best covering the Seahawks. And Henderson said that he was pretty confident that Riq would not get an extension. To me, that would be a huge mistake. This is an elite player entering the prime of his career, and as I'm trying to rationalize this, there's really only two ways that I think letting him walk could possibly make sense. The first is that maybe he's a locker room cancer. He is evidently one of the lower intensity players on the team, and last year he got benched for violating a team rule. And if this is true, then fine. But only the guys in that locker room know how he is as a teammate. I would say that it has to be really bad for that to be the reason for you to let one of your best players walk. But I have no information on this front. The only other reason I can come up with why you would want to let him go is contractual. I hate to break it to you, but Witherspoon is going to become one of the highest paid corners in the league. He will probably get over $30 million per year, maybe in 2026 or 2027. And so if you don't want to pay Riq Woolen near the top of the market, I would understand. Dropping close to $60 million per year on your top corner duo is questionable from a roster building standpoint. And if that's what it comes down to, I mean, I guess I would understand it a little bit, but I just don't think the Hawks should be in the business of letting elite talent walk out of the door. And also, you do have Witherspoon's fifth-year option. If you give Riq a 3-year deal and then pick up Witherspoon's 5th-year option and give him a 4-year deal, you can kind of spread out the money a little bit so that the bulk of Witherspoon's contract isn't hitting while Riq is on the books. It is workable. Riq is so misunderstood by not only the media at large, but Seahawks fans themselves consistently underrate him. I get that he has weaknesses. I'm not here denying those. His effort and his tackling are both areas where he can still improve. But don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Somehow perfect has become the bar for Woolen, and that is ridiculous, particularly at this position. Riq has true elite strengths, and he has a huge impact for this defense. And if you just don't like the guy, that is fine. Fan favorite players are usually the highest energy guys on the team, like Devin Witherspoon, so I'm not surprised that Riq isn't everyone's favorite guy. If you want everyone on the team to play like Witherspoon and just don't like Woolen's style, that is also completely fine. But don't question the play that he's been putting out on the field. He has been one of the most dynamic, one of the most shut down, and yes, one of the most consistent corners in the NFL. I know that is a tremendously unpopular take for this fan base, but let me know your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more Seahawks film breakdowns. We're working towards 5K before week 1, and we're getting so close, so thank you for your support. If you have any questions about my charting process or rationale, drop a comment or check out the article linked below. Thanks for watching, and go Hawks.